Welcome back to Easy English Flow with Mark and Sarah. Before we start, a quick reminder. If you want to speak better English, hit that subscribe button.
Think about it. You don't want to look back in a year and say, you could have been fluent.
Subscribing is your first step to making sure that your future self is proud of the progress you made today.
Exactly. We are absolutely looking out for your future self right now. And honestly, that phrase you just used, you don't want to say you could have been fluent.
Yeah.
That is just the perfect launch pad for today's deep dive. It's funny, most people think of grammar as, I don't know, these dusty old rules in a textbook.
Oh, totally. Like something you have to memorize for a test and then you just forget it.
Right. But today, we're going to prove that grammar is actually time travel.
Time travel. Okay, I love that. It makes me feel like we should be wearing like silver jumpsuits or something.
We probably should.
But seriously, when you say time travel, you're not just being poetic, are you? We're talking about a very specific mental gymnastic that English speakers do all the time.
Constantly. We really are. Today is all about mastering what we call the imaginary past.
The imaginary past. It sounds like the title of a fantasy novel.
It kind of does, doesn't it?
But for our listeners, and I'm thinking specifically about you intermediate to advanced learners, the B2s, the C1s out there, this is so often the ceiling. It's the glass ceiling of fluency.
It really is.
You can order a coffee, you can describe your job, no problem. But
yeah,
can you talk about the alternate reality where you didn't take that job?
That is the key question.
Yeah.
In communication, we spend a huge amount of our time discussing what I like to call parallel universes.
Parallel universes. Okay, let's unpack that a little because it sounds very sci-fi.
It does, but it's not.
When you say we talk about parallel universes, do you just mean we're like daydreaming?
It's more than just daydreaming. We are actively processing reality by comparing it to something that didn't happen. I mean, think about it. How often do you replay a conversation in the shower? You think, I should have said that joke, or I would have been so much funnier if I hadn't been so tired.
Every single morning. I call them the shower arguments.
Shower argument.
They're legendary. And I win all of them, by the way.
Of course you do, because you control that universe.
Yeah.
But that's exactly it. That shower universe, it doesn't actually exist. It's a mental construct.
Right.
But to describe it in English, you have to use a very specific set of tools. And if you use the wrong tool, if you use the grammar of the real world to describe this imaginary world, you don't just sound wrong.
What do you sound like?
You sound confused. You sound like you don't fully understand reality.
Wow, that's a high stake. So it's not just about getting the verb tense right. It's about signaling to the listener, hey, step into this fantasy world with me for a second.
Precisely. And for our listeners, the goal today isn't just to memorize a formula. You probably already know the formula, right? Modal plus have plus past participle.
We've all seen it in the books.
You've taken the tests. The goal today is to understand the emotional intent. Why do we choose one of these imaginary universes over another?
So we're moving from just, translating in our heads to actually thinking in English.
We're moving from thinking to feeling. We need to get comfortable with the big three: would have been, could have been, and should have been.
The big three: logic, opportunity, and expectation.
That's them.
And of course, we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of how to actually say these things without sounding like a robot. Because I hear so many learners who are grammatically perfect, but they sound like they're reading a legal contract.
Oh, I know that sound.
I would have been happy.
It just kills the vibe completely. We need to talk about the flow. We have to talk about that phonetic reduction.
All right. Let's fire up the time machine then. Let's jump into that first parallel universe. Segment 1, the foundation. We're starting with the big one, would have been.
The logic of certainty.
Okay, set the stage for us. When I say would have been, what am I actually signaling to the person I'm talking to?
You are signaling what we call the definite result. This is the structure of 100% certainty, but, and this is the really tricky part, it's certainty within a fake context.
Certainty in a fake context? That feels like a paradox, doesn't it? How can I be certain about something that never even happened?
Well, it's the arrogance of hindsight. It's how our human brains process cause and effect.
The arrogance of hindsight. I like that.
When you use would have been, you are telling a story where you know exactly how the dominoes would have fallen. You're not guessing. You are stating a fact about a world that doesn't exist.
Okay, let's ground this with a concrete example from the research. This is a classic travel scenario. If the flight hadn't been canceled, the trip would have been perfect.
Okay, so let's analyze the psychology here. First, let's do the reality check. What actually happened in the real world?
The reality is a total mess. The flight got canceled. Maybe they spent the night on the airport floor. Maybe they missed the first 2 days of their vacation. The trip was definitely not perfect.
Exactly. That is the timeline we are currently living in. But the speaker, they're constructing a parallel timeline. In that other timeline, the plane takes off on schedule, the sun is shining. And the result.
Perfection. It would have been perfect.
Notice the confidence in that. They aren't saying, oh, it might have been fun or it probably would have been good. They're saying perfection was guaranteed.
It's interesting because it implies that the flight cancellation was the only thing that went wrong. It was the single villain in the whole story.
Yes, and this is where would have been gets a little dangerous, psychologically speaking. It's what we call the romance of the unlived life.
The romance of the unlived life. Wow.
When you say the trip would have been perfect, you are mentally deleting all the other potential problems.
Okay.
You're deleting the mosquitoes. You're deleting the bad hotel food.
The sunburn, the argument you had with your partner about the map.
All of it. Gone. You are comparing a messy, complicated reality to a pristine, flawless fantasy.
That is such a good point. We use would have been to kind of lie to ourselves a little bit. We idealize the path we didn't take.
We absolutely do. Let's look at another one, a social reflection example. I missed the party, but I know it would have been fun.
Ah, yes, the FOMO sentence, the fear of missing out. I say this all the time. Man, I missed the concert last night, but it would have been epic.
Right. But be honest with yourself. Have you ever been to a concert that wasn't epic?
Oh, totally. Long lines for the bathroom, the sound is terrible, the beer costs a fortune.
Exactly. Reality is messy. But the imaginary past is clean. When you say it would have been fun, you are projecting certainty based on what you know about the people, or the band, or the venue.
So I'm telling the listener, I have calculated all the variables in my head, and the result is a sure thing.
Correct. So would is the modal of logic. You are asserting a logical conclusion.
The logic of certainty. Now, before we get too deep into the philosophy, we have to address the mechanical side of this, the pronunciation. Because if I go around articulating every single syllable, it would have been fun. I just sound aggressive. Or strange.
You sound like you're angry at the dictionary.
Exactly. So let's talk phonetic flow. This is so crucial for our B2 and C1 listeners. The goal is to sound like a native speaker, not a text-to-speech bot from 1998.
Right.
So what's the reduction here?
Native speakers, we prioritize rhythm over clarity. We get lazy with our consonants. We smash words together just to keep the beat of the sentence. So would have been almost never sounds like three distinct words.
Yeah.
It becomes one single sound unit.
Okay, break it down for me.
It becomes nuben.
Novem. Okay, so I want to drill this. Woulda. W-O-U-L-D-A. Woulda.
Right. And really pay attention to what your mouth is doing here. The have is completely gone. There's no H sound. There's no V sound. It's just a schwa, that little lazy sound. Woulda.
Woulda. Got it. And then been. And it's not bean like the vegetable, is it? I hear a lot of students say it woulda been.
No vegetables allowed here. It's bin. A very short I sound, like a trash bin. So put them together. Would have been.
Would have been. It almost sounds like a weird wooden container. Just put it in the would have been.
Exactly. If you can say it that fast, you're doing it right.
Let's try a practice sentence from the source material. It would have been easier if we had the right tools.
Okay, now listen to the stress there. Try saying it, but put the stress on the word would.
It would have been easier.
See? That sounds weird. It sounds like you're arguing with someone, like you're being defensive.
Yeah, it does feel defensive. Like, no, you're wrong. It would have been easier.
Gotta try it again. This time, just glide right over the woulda and put the stress on the important word, the adjective. Stress, easier.
It would have been easier.
Yes. Do you hear that difference? The grammar just disappears into the background. The emotion, the concept of easier, that's what pops out. That is the secret to flow.
You reduce the grammar so the meaning can shine.
You got it.
It would have been easier. It would have been fun. It would have been a total disaster.
Perfect. You're surfing the wave now.
I feel the flow. This is great. Okay, let's stick with would have been for just a second more, because the source material mentions something really interesting about the emotional range. We've talked about how it asserts certainty, but that certainty can feel very different depending on the context.
That's right. It usually swings between two extremes, regret and relief.
Let's talk about regret first. That's the painful one.
This is when you're looking back at a lost positive outcome. For example, it would have been so nice to see her again.
Oof. Yeah, that one aches a little bit. You can feel that.
Because you are visualizing that parallel universe
Yeah.
where you had coffee, you laughed, you caught up on old times, and in your mind, that universe is
And
perfect.
then you snap back to reality where you didn't see her.
And the gap between those two worlds, that's what creates the feeling of regret. And wood just twists the knife because it says it definitely 100% was going to be good.
Wow.
But then you got the flip side, relief. This is when you dodge a bullet.
The near miss.
Right. Staying in that house would have been a disaster.
I can almost hear the exhale in that sentence. Like, whew.
In this case, the parallel universe is a nightmare. The roof fell in, the pipes burst, the whole thing was a money pit, and you're celebrating the fact that you're stuck in your current reality.
So would have been is your go-to for these strong, logical assertions about how the past definitely played out in your imagination.
That's the foundation. But,
Hmm.
life isn't always that certain.
That is very true. Sometimes we don't know for sure. Sometimes we're just guessing.
Or dreaming.
Which brings us perfectly to segment 2, the shift. We are moving from the arrogance of would to the open possibilities of could.
The logic of opportunity.
Okay, so define could have been for us. How does the entire vibe change when we just swap that W for a C?
Oh, it's a massive shift, a huge shift in perspective. Could have been moves you from talking about a result to talking about capacity. Yeah, capacity, potential.
Yeah.
It is the language of the mischance, the alternative path, the hidden potential that was never realized.
So we're dealing with what was possible, not necessarily what was guaranteed.
Exactly. It implies the ingredients were there. The door was unlocked. You didn't walk through it.
Let's look at the life path example from the source. I think everyone can relate to this one. He could have been a professional athlete, but he chose to study law instead.
Okay, let's build this character out a little bit. Let's call him Dave.
Dave the lawyer. Sounds good.
Dave is sitting in his office. It's like 9 o'clock at night.
Mm.
He's surrounded by paperwork. He's drinking cold coffee. And he looks up at a framed photo on his wall of himself playing football back in college.
And he thinks to himself, I could have been a pro.
Now, let's be real here. The reality check is Dave's is a lawyer. That is his timeline. But the imaginary logic here isn't saying he would have been a star quarterback.
Right.
It's not saying he would have won the Super Bowl.
No, because if he said I would have been a pro, he sounds kind of delusional, a little arrogant. Like, oh yeah, I was guaranteed a spot on the team.
Exactly. That's the arrogance of would creeping in. But I could have been.
Yeah.
Just means I had the talent, I had the physical capacity. It was a valid option on the menu of my life.
It feels more wistful. It's about that untapped potential. It's that classic line from the movie On the Waterfront. I could have been a contender.
I could have been a contender.
Yeah.
That's it. He's not saying I would have been the champion of the world. He's saying I deserved a shot at the title. It's a tragic motor, really.
It really is. Could've is the modal of tragedy and daydreaming. Let's apply this to a workplace setting because I know a lot of our listeners are using English for their careers. Here's a performance review example. The presentation was good, but it could have been better if we had more visual aids.
Yeah.
This is that classic sandwich feedback technique. Say something positive, then the negative, then another positive.
It is. The reality is the presentation was acceptable, was good, but the speaker is identifying a missed opportunity for excellence.
So the imaginary logic is the resources, the visual aids, they existed. If we had used them, there was a possibility of a higher quality result.
But notice it's not a guarantee. Maybe the visual aids would have been distracting. Maybe the projector would have broken. We don't really know. But the potential for improvement was there.
So could have been is much softer than would have been. It's more speculative. It kind of opens up the conversation rather than shutting it down.
It invites the listener to imagine the possibility with you without forcing them to accept your conclusion as fact.
Okay, let's do the phonetic flow for this one. We did woulda. I'm going to guess this follows a pretty similar pattern.
It absolutely does. But I think the feeling is slightly different because of that hard C sound at the beginning. Could have been. Gets reduced to.
Kie ben, could have been.
Coulda. C-O-U-L-D-A. Coulda.
It feels a little softer in the mouth than woulda. The W in woulda makes you round your lips, but the C for coulda, it starts further back in the throat. It's a bit quicker.
It is. It's a bit punchier at the start, but it flows just as fast into the rest of the sentence.
Let's try the practice sentence. We could have been late if we hadn't taken the shortcut.
We could have been late. See how the rhythm just drives the sentence forward? You aren't stumbling over all those consonants.
We could have been late. It's interesting when you say it fast like that, it makes you sound less like you're accusing someone and more like you're just making an observation about the universe.
That's a really good point. The flow takes the sharp edges off the grammar. It just sounds more casual, more natural.
Okay, so we've got woulda, the confident, sometimes arrogant certainty, and we've got coulda, the wistful, open-ended opportunity. Now, I want to put these two in a cage match.
The grammatical cage match. I'm so into it. Let's do it.
Segment 3, the showdown. Speculation versus certainty, because I feel like this is where listeners really get tripped up. They start to use them interchangeably, but they mean very, very different things.
They're absolutely not interchangeable. Choosing between would and could completely changes the entire psychological landscape of your sentence.
Let's start with the side-by-side analysis. The source gives us a simple comparison first. It would have been great versus it could have been great.
Okay, it would have been great is you putting your reputation on the line. You are betting money that in that parallel universe, greatness was the only possible outcome.
Whereas it could have been great it feels sadder to me.
It's much more about lost potential. It implies that all the ingredients for greatness were there, but maybe the chef messed up the recipe. Something went wrong.
Let's do a deep dive scenario. The concert. I think this is a great way to see the nuance in action.
Okay, scenario A. Imagine you went to a concert. The band was on fire. The set list was perfect. The energy in the crowd was amazing. But the speakers were blown out. Just horrible feedback, screeching, low volume. It was painful to listen to.
Okay, so I leave the concert, my ears are ringing, and I say to my friend, the concert would have been better if the sound system was fixed.
Okay, analysis. You are asserting a direct cause and effect relationship. You're isolating the variable.
The sound system.
Right. The band was good. The songs were good. The only barrier to perfection was the sound. So if you fix the sound, the result is a better concert. Guaranteed. 100%.
Okay, got it. Now, scenario B. Same band. But this time, the sound system is perfect, crystal clear. But the band decides to play their weird new experimental jazz fusion album that nobody likes.
Oh, no.
They don't play any of their famous hits. The crowd is just bored and checking their phones.
In this case, you leave and you say, the concert could have been better if they played more of their old hits.
I see the difference so clearly now. Playing the old hits is a strategy. It's an option that they had. It might have improved things.
It might have.
But maybe the band was just having an off night. Maybe the crowd was just tired. Maybe I've just grown out of this band and I don't like them anymore. It's not a guarantee.
Exactly. You're identifying a missed opportunity. Hey, you guys had the option to play your big hit song, but you aren't claiming that it would have fixed everything 100%.
So could is more speculative. It's like you're offering an alternative theory. But would is you stating a hard fact about a fake world.
Perfectly said. And this leads us to some really advanced, subtle nuance when it comes to things like sarcasm and criticism. This is the office politics section of our deep dive.
Ooh, I love this part. How to be polite or secretly rude using modals.
Basically, yes. Here's the general rule of thumb. Could softens a critique. Would sharpens it, makes it more direct.
Okay, give me the example.
Let's say you are at a dinner party. You're eating your friend's cooking, and the chicken is, well, it's very dry. It's like eating sand.
This is a hypothetical chicken, of course.
Of course. A completely hypothetical, sandy chicken. Now, if you want to be constructive, maybe you're a good friend and you want to help them improve, you might say, you know, the dinner could have been even better with a little bit of a sauce.
It could have been better. That sounds helpful. It sounds like a suggestion for next time. You're saying, you had the capacity to make it better, and here's an idea.
Exactly. Now, let's try it with would. Imagine you're angry, you paid for this terrible meal, you slam your fork down on the table. The dinner would have been better if you hadn't overcooked it.
Ooh. This shot's fired. That is direct. That hurts.
It's heavy, isn't it? You are stating a direct result of a specific failure. You failed to cook it right, and therefore the dinner was ruined. There's no ambiguity there.
So, a pro tip for our listeners. If you want to be diplomatic at work, maybe lean towards using could have been in your feedback.
Absolutely. This report could have been more detailed is much, much nicer than this report would have been acceptable if you had actually done the research.
Yeah, you probably don't want to say that second one unless you're ready for a very awkward meeting with HR.
Exactly. Could allows the other person to save face.
Right.
Would backs them into a corner and points out their failure.
That is such a crucial social skill. Okay, so we've mastered the certainty of would and the opportunity of could. But there's a third player in this game, the strict one, the one that follows all the
The
rules.
logic of expectation.
Segment 4, the standard. Let's talk about should have been.
This is what I call the corrective past.
Corrective past. That sounds very judgmental.
It is. It's inherently judgmental. It describes a past that failed to meet a specific standard or a plan or a promise. It's not about what might have happened. It's about what was supposed to happen.
This is the language of duty and frustration.
A lot of frustration.
Yeah.
Think of it as the gap between the universe that was promised and the universe we actually got.
Okay, let's look at the logistics and planning example. I think we've all felt this one. The package should have been here by now.
Okay, so reality check. The package is not here. You look out the window, the porch is empty.
And the imaginary logic is I have a tracking number from the company. It says delivery by Tuesday. It is now Tuesday at 5 p.m. Therefore, the expected outcome was arrival.
Notice that we aren't using would. The package would have been here. Doesn't really make sense on its own. You'd have to add a condition.
Right.
Like, it would have been here if the driver didn't get lost.
Right. But it should have been here stands alone. It appeals to a higher authority, the schedule, the promise from the company.
It implies that the universe has broken a rule. You promised me a package, universe. Where is it?
It's funny how much emotion that one little word should carries. It implies like a breach of contract almost.
It does. Let's look at the moral or social standard example. He should have been more honest with us during the meeting.
Yeah, that's not just a critique of how the meeting went. That's a critique of his character.
Exactly. The reality is he was dishonest, or maybe he was evasive. The imaginary logic is honesty was the correct and expected behavior required for that social situation.
So should have been is what we use when reality disappoints us because it didn't follow the rules that we had in our head.
Yes, it's the finger-wagging modal.
The finger-wagging model. I'm going to remember that. Okay, let's hit the phonetic flow. We've had woulda, we've had coulda, and now we have
Should have been. Should have been.
shoulda. SHOULDA. Now, does this one feel different to you phonetically?
It does, actually. It starts with that soft but forceful sound. Shh. It's a very distinct starting point.
Let's try the practice sentence. This one needs some passion behind it. Imagine you are watching a football game. Your team scores, but the referee blows the whistle and disallows it. Oh, the worst feeling. You jump up and you yell, "That should have been a goal. The referee made a huge mistake."
Yes. You have to lean into the frustration. That should have been a goal.
You don't say it calmly. You don't say that should have been a goal. You shout, "That should have been a goal." The emotion just compresses the words together.
That's a great observation. The more emotional you are, often the faster and more complete the reduction happens.
Man, you should have been there last night. It should have worked. I don't know what went wrong.
It just flows right off the tongue, but
Right.
it carries all that weight of disappointment and broken expectations.
So we have the big three: woulda, coulda, shoulda.
The trifecta of the imaginary past.
Let's move to segment 5, the masterclass. Because now we want to help our listeners achieve true flow by mixing these up in a real conversation.
Right. Because in a real conversation, at a bar, in a business meeting, on a date, you don't just stick to one of these, you dance between them. You're constantly shifting timelines and perspectives.
So let's recap the emotional trifecta one more time so listeners can spot these patterns instantly.
Okay. Let's boil it all down to its essence.
Give us the key words.
Would. Logic. The thought is, I am sure this was the result. It's the arrogance of hindsight.
Got it.
Could. Opportunity. The thought is, it was a possible option. It's the wistful tragedy of untapped potential.
Okay.
And should. Expectation. The thought is, it was the right or planned thing. It's the judgment of broken rules.
Logic, opportunity, expectation. That's a great framework. Now let's look at a mixed modal dialogue. I want to act this out with you. I'll read speaker A, you read speaker B. Let's see how the emotions interact.
I'm ready.
Ugh, I'm so disappointed I missed the conference last week. I bet it would have been an incredible networking opportunity.
It was okay, but honestly, it could have been much more productive if the workshops were longer.
Okay, let's freeze that right there. Let's break down what just happened in that little exchange.
Speaker A, that was, you used woulda. You weren't at the event, but you projected absolute certainty onto it. You're idealizing it. It would have been incredible. You were seeing rainbows and unicorns and perfect handshakes.
I'm creating a perfect parallel universe where I get a new job, make 1,000,000 contacts, and everyone loves my ideas.
Exactly. Then speaker B, that's me. I bring a dose of reality into it. I was actually there. I saw the flaws. So I used coulda. It could have been more productive.
We're not saying it was bad.
No, not at all. I'm identifying a specific flaw, the workshops were too short, and I'm pointing out the potential for improvement.
You're grounding my fantasy. I'm saying it would have been amazing. And you're gently saying, it had the potential to be better.
Right. And this shows emotional intelligence. Speaker B isn't just disagreeing for the sake of it, they are nuancing the past. Now, if I had said it should have been better, I would have sounded angry and demanding.
Yeah, that's a complaint.
But it could have been better. Sounds objective and constructive.
That is such a great skill to have, being able to shift from it definitely would have to it possibly could have, changes the entire texture of a conversation.
And to help our listeners make that decision in real time, because these conversations happen fast, we develop the what-if decision matrix.
A mental checklist. I love a good checklist. Walk us through it.
It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
When you're about to speak about the imaginary past, just quickly ask yourself, what is my intent here?
Okay.
If your intent is result-oriented, you want to emphasize a certain outcome, then you use would have been.
And if your intent is option-oriented, you want to emphasize an alternative path or a different capacity you use.
Good.
Exactly. Result versus option. That's a really clear way to divide them. So we would have won if our best player hadn't gotten injured. That's result.
Perfect.
Versus we played okay, but we could have played better. That's option.
You got it. And finally, the last one. If your intent is standard-oriented, you want to complain about a broken rule or a failure to meet expectations, then you use should have been.
We should have won that game. The referee's decision was terrible. That's a standard. We were the better team. We deserved it.
Perfect. That framework covers almost every single scenario you will face in a conversation.
This is deep stuff. It's really amazing how much psychology is hidden inside 3 little auxiliary verbs.
Language is psychology. That's all it is. It's how we organize our chaotic world into a story that makes sense to us.
All right, we've covered the theory, the phonetics, and the philosophy. Now it is time to put our listeners to work.
The application.
Segment 6, listener challenge and application. We don't want you to just listen to this. We want you to be thinking in English.
We have a mastery challenge for you. We want you to complete 3 reflections based on your own life. This is what moves the lesson from your passive listening brain into your active speaking brain.
Okay, reflection number 1 is the reflection on certainty.
I want you to complete this sentence and say it out loud. If I had started learning English 5 years ago, my career would have been.
Ooh, that is a heavy one. My career would have been. What are some possibilities? More advanced, totally different, in a different country.
Visualize that parallel universe where you started 5 years earlier.
Right.
What is the guaranteed result in your mind? Be arrogant about it. It would have been amazing.
Okay, reflection number 2, the reflection on opportunity. This is your I could have been a contender moment.
Complete this sentence. At 18 years old, I could have been a 10.
Choose that different path. The road not taken.
Right.
I could have been a doctor. I could have been a musician. I could have been a professional backpacker living in hostels.
Remember, this is about capacity and choice. You had the option. You didn't take it, but the option was there. Don't worry about if you would have succeeded or not. Just acknowledge that you could have tried.
And finally, reflection number 3. The reflection on standards. This is the complaint department.
Looking back at my last project, the final result should have been.
This is the self-critique. Should have been faster. Should have been cheaper. Should have been completely error-free.
What was the standard that you or your team failed to meet? Be honest with yourself.
I really encourage everyone to actually pause the deep dive. Well, not yet. Wait until we finish. But take a moment later today to say these sentences out loud and really try to use the reductions. My career would have been. I could have been. It should have been.
Feeling those sounds in your mouth is the first step to owning them. It literally retrains your muscle memory.
Let's do a quick vocabulary recap before we wrap things up. We threw some pretty big terms around today.
We did. Let's make them simple. First, the imaginary past. That's just the narrative space where we discuss these non-existent scenarios, the what-ifs.
Next, phonetic reduction.
That's the process of blending modals, woulda, coulda, shoulda, to maintain that natural rhythm and flow of speech.
And my favorite one, contextual intent.
That's the speaker's underlying goal. Are you expressing regret, relief, criticism? That determines which grammar you choose.
It's not just grammar, it's contextual intent. I love that. It sounds so much more strategic.
It sounds smart, doesn't it?
It makes me feel smart just saying it. Well, we've unpacked a lot today. We've traveled through parallel universes, we've fixed sound systems at imaginary concerts, and we've dodged bad dinner service using social grace.
We have covered a lot of ground.
As we head into the outro, can you give us one final piece of wisdom? Why does this all matter? Why should a learner spend an hour obsessing over woulda, coulda, shoulda?
Because mastery of the imaginary past is the hallmark of advanced fluency. It's a key differentiator.
It was so.
Beginners talk about what is, intermediates talk about what was, but masters talk about what isn't.
Wow, that's
It
profound.
allows you to express all these complex human emotions: nostalgia, professional critique, deep regret, profound relief. When you can use these reductions naturally and choose the right intent, you stop translating from your native language.
Can you start?
You start truly thinking in English. You start feeling the flow.
And that is the goal, to feel the flow.
Absolutely.
Listeners, we really want to hear from you. We want to see your parallel universes.
Yes, please engage with us in the comments.
We have a specific question for you to answer down below. I want everyone to answer this one.
It's a fun one.
If you could have been anything else in the world, what would you have been?
I could have been a rock star. I could have been a chef. I could have been an astronaut. Let us know.
Use the structure. Use the flow. And hey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't have to say, I should have subscribed next year.
Don't live in that universe. Live in this one with us.
See you in the next flow.